Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Midwest Mythos. And you know what? This week, we're trying some new stuff. I decided, you know what? The lighting ain't too good in the basement that I record in, so you know what? We're trying it in the dark. Give that dark ambiance feeling, that eerie vibe, that creepy, that feeling. And, it kind of fits the vibe of what we're going to be doing. So, this is actually the start of something that is going to be on and off throughout the probably next year or two of the podcast, what I'm doing tonight, and we'll get to that here in a second. Actually, I'm just tell you what it is right now, just for the fun of it, so people don't turn away. I'm going to be diving into some stories from each national park across the nation, because for all you longtime listeners, I bring up the national parks and what's going on in a lot of them quite often on this show. So I figure what better way to honor them in a sense than to do an episode on them. So I'll be hitting two national parks in this episode, but I'll also be hitting the origin of national parks. The order in which I go will kind of be at random. If any of you guys have any specifics that you want me to get into, you know, let me know and we can do that one. Or if any of you guys have experiences in said national parks and would like me to share your story, or you even come on and do an episode about that national park, be more than happy to do that for y'all. But with that being said, thank you guys for all the support. We're about to hit 2,000 overall listens. Way more than I thought I'd have in my first year. 1 year of the show coming up next month. Uh, if you would like to be the creator of the new cover for Midwest Mythos, the new image, instead of, you might be able to see it in the right hand corner. The UFOs with the deer and the Bigfoot in the woods and the map behind it. That's nice. But I know I got some awesome artist friends out there and listeners who I know could come up with something pretty awesome. There's creative rain all over it. All it's got to do is say Midwest Mythos on it. And yeah, continue to like, share, subscribe, comment on the show. Y'all are doing awesome with that. And if you or anybody you know wants to be a guest on the show, reach out through the link tree, or you can email me at midwestmythospodcast@outlook.com or message me on Instagram at midwestmythos. Be more than happy to talk to you and get a hold of you and have you on the show to talk about cryptids, conspiracies, ancient history, some really fascinating local legends that you guys have in your area. You do not have to be from the Midwest to be a guest on the show. I thought I should make that clear because I have had some people ask, "Oh, well, I'm not from the Midwest, but I'd like to be on your show." No, you don't have to be from the Midwest. It's just the title of the show. So, with that being said, let's get into it. So, like I said, I'm going to start with the origin of the national parks. So, I'm just going to read a quick excerpt. The concept of the national parks originated from a desire to protect natural land and wonders and landscapes for public enjoyment and preservation, with the United States establishing the world's first national park, Yellowstone, in 1872. But there was some stuff that happened before Yellowstone was founded. In 1832, artist George Catlin, concerned about the impact of westward expansion on the Native American culture and wildlife, proposed an idea of the national parks to preserve the natural beauty of the land. Yosemite Valley was donated in 1864 by the state of California for preservation as a national park and, well, as a state park, which began to lead into the idea of a national park. And then in 1872, in the territories of Montana and Wyoming, Yellowstone was established. So they went around, started looking around for different places that might be awesome. Places such as Yosemite, Sequoia, Mount Rainier, and the Grand Canyon were considered. The National Park Service was beginning to look like it was going to be a legit, real thing. That there would be a lot more than Yellowstone. And in 1916, that became a real deal thing. That's what was going to happen. So the Antiquities Act of 1906 by our man, President Theodore Roosevelt, gave the president the president authority to create national monuments on federal land and protect areas of historic and significant interest. So our man Teddy Roosevelt, the Bigfoot hunter, the Snallygaster hunter, the Safari man, the Rough Rider, the man, the myth, the legend, played a huge part in this. And as I mentioned, the Bigfoot hunter, the Snallygaster hunter, he probably had some knowledge about what was going on. So I'm gonna kind of get into the what what we like to think about national parks, what I like to think, what like-minded people like to think, and that would be maybe there's cryptids and things of significant interest, or giants, or natural resources such as ores and stuff like that. And Theodore Roosevelt would have known about most of that stuff, being the explorer he was and the adventurer he was. So, some people like to think that these giants, these cryptids, such as Bigfoot, Dogman, aliens, I mean, aliens are kind of their own thing, they're going to be everywhere. But there's a lot of weird stuff that takes place in national parks, missing people, sections being cut off for absolutely no reason besides, oh, there's bears in the area, or mudslides, stuff like that, which I'm not saying doesn't happen. I'm pretty sure 95% of the time it is actually those things. But evidence would prove, evidence being accounts that people have, that there's possibly some other stuff out there. I've heard a lot of crazy stories about national parks and what happened to them, such as stuff out in Joshua Tree, uh, stuff happening Yellowstone, Yosemite. I mean, you look at Yosemite. If you want to hear about some Bigfoot stuff, crazy stuff that's happening in Yosemite, uh, go check out Eli Watson's work over at Small Town Mountain Monsters, his Mountain Mystery series. There's 3 episodes right now. Talk about some stuff that's happening out in Yosemite, Sierra Nevada area. Quite wild. But with that being said, there's some crazy stuff happening out there. There's cave systems that start to look under all this stuff. There's a lot of resources out there that you can look at that make some alignments. I'm not going to say just because I've been told not to talk about certain things because certain people will get upset and come after you lawsuit wise. So all you have to look up is national parks, missing people, and y'all can kind of put things. There's a lot of resources out there, but just look at it. So that y'all, let's just get into it. I'm going to start with my backyard national park right here. I have not been there in years. I actually plan on going out there quite a bit this summer because it's not too far away from me, and I was not aware it was a true national park. I've always heard it referred to as a state park, which I got state parks all around me. But then I was just looking at the maps and I was like, oh, yeah, this is a national park. So I'm going to start out with Indiana Dunes National Park. So Indiana Dunes is on the western bottom little part of the basin of Lake Michigan. It goes from almost Gary up past Michigan City, Indiana. So it's this whole little curve. It's about 50-mile stretch. It's 15,000 acres, I believe. It's woods, sand dunes. It's pretty out there. I mean, it's nothing compared to Yosemite, Smoky Mountain National Park. It's, there's a lot cooler national parks out there, but if you like Lake Michigan and you like sand dunes and stuff, it don't get much better than this place. When you think of Midwest forest and stuff like that, this is it. Just sandy. But there's a lot of cool history out there. So to start, I'm going to talk about the ghost of Diana of the Dunes. Okay, this is pretty interesting because it's a ghost story. It's a story of conservation and what it takes in order to get stuff done when it comes to conservation. Now, I'm not, the environment's the most important thing in the world kind of person, but I do love nature. I do want to preserve nature, but I also understand that, hey, we do need resources, we do need stuff, but we can do it in an effective manner while still preserving certain areas. So, yeah. So, the story takes place about a lady named Alice Gray, who will become Diana of the Dunes. So, if you back in the day, you used to be able to walk around the shores of Indiana Dunes National Park, and you would get a glimpse of a pale, naked lady diving into the waters of Lake Michigan along its shores. Let me tell you something. Lake Michigan, it don't matter if it's 100 degrees outside. Lake Michigan's pretty cold still. Like, the warmest I think I've ever felt the water get is like 60 degrees, which, I mean, for water, I I don't know. It's not freezing cold, but it's still kind of cold. But people have reported seeing this woman who was a big conservation fighter. She lived in a shack down on Lake Michigan that was found. I believe she called it the Driftwood. I don't have it in my notes here. I just remember what I was watching and reading to get. So basically, there were some steel mills, some factories and stuff that were going to take place in Gary, and it was going to destroy a lot of the environment. And this lady decided to live in this area in the national park and fight against it. She believed in preserving the area because it is pretty, and Lake Michigan is a one of a kind area. There's nothing like it on this planet. Each of the Great Lakes has its own unique thing about it, except for Lake Erie. Not a big fan of Lake Erie, personally, but that's only because it almost took my life. But hikers going through Indiana Dunes National Park report seeing a lady in 1920s era clothing walking around the dunes, and they just see her walking around. People say she's still out there trying to protect the environment, keep any movement from, development of it. And I think she'd be pretty happy with what's going on. Because a lot of the area is still natural. Now they do have like communities and stuff chunked off in certain things, and there is US 12 running through part of it. But even that's super not invasive. I mean, a highway is invasive, but there's not a lot of stuff off on the sides, just little pull offs. No really gas stations or anything like that. So, sorry about this. I thought I had, I'm sorry, guys. Please, please forgive me. I'm not going to edit this out because I want you guys to see how it really is. I don't want to be that dude that edits everything and you guys just get the highlights. I want you to see from me what for it is so we can look back in the future and see hopefully the development I made. So, a lot of people were inspired by Alice, aka Diana's work. So they actually have a challenge now called Diana the Dunes Dare. There you have to climb a bunch of stairs that overlook everything. It's a whole trail. There's some dune climbing, there's some steps and cool stuff you have to. This is more towards the in between Gary and Chesterton, Indiana. But yeah, it's this cool little challenge that you can go do. You get to see a lot of the highlights of the national park. This is the more scenic, like touristy part of the park because it's closer to Chicago. I'd say it's only probably about 35 minutes away from Chicago. So yeah, I mean, if you guys are ever out up in Northwest Indiana and you want to go to a national park, one that's chill, you can pretty much see everything in a day, maybe 2 days. You don't want to spend all that money going out to Yellowstone or something like that, but you want to knock one off the bucket list. Come out to Indiana Dunes National Park, and you know what? I'll tell you what, if you guys decide to do that and you would love for me to tag along with y'all, shoot me a message, be like, hey, I'm heading up to Indiana Dunes National Park this date. Would you want to come? Chances are I'll meet you out there, as I am not too far away from the national park. It is definitely I can make a drive in the morning on a weekend and do. And it'd be cool to meet some of you guys. But Diana isn't the only thing going on at this national park. There's legends of the Sasquatch, the legendary dune walking Sasquatch. Although it's funny because there's no direct one specific Sasquatch that they did the Sasquatch off of. There's just been a bunch of series of Sasquatch encounters that they thought would be cool to give it its own unique name, being in the sand dunes. So, one of the most well known Sasquatch encounters or pieces of evidence was shown on the Animal Planet series Finding Bigfoot. Matt Moneymaker, Bobo, Renee, Cliff, Brockman, they all came out to look at this video that was shown of what looked like a Sasquatch coming out of the trees. The family got it on video and stuff like that. They debunked it. It's pretty sure it's not Sasquatch, but there's so many other areas out there that could have Squatch, and there's a lot of areas just north of it, just south of it, that have had a lot of Squatch activity. And I don't have any of the exact reports for you. I'm just speaking from like personal experience and things I've heard people tell me. Especially Southwest Michigan, there's a lot of Squatch stuff that there. The Dewey Lake Monster. If you guys go way back in the archive to when the show first started, I think it was like episode 7, the Ghost Girl and the Dewey Lake Monster. Dewey Lake's only about an hour 20 minutes away from Indiana Dunes National Park if you hop on the highway. But while they were here, the Finding Bigfoot team was here, they found some kind of evidence. They didn't think it was so hot, so they went down to southern Indiana, which I don't blame them. But it's still possible. There's a lot of activity that they could still get. Actually, I believe they went to a reserve just east as well, and they did have some activity that's maybe like 45 minutes east. But needless to say, it's a national park. There's some weird stuff happening in all the national parks. And if you want to get really into it, they got a Hadron Collider in Chicago, which ain't too far away. So there's some stuff like that happen. A lot of Chicago Mothman experiences, if you want to get into the Chicago Mothman. A lot of the stuff didn't actually happen in Chicago. It happened in Gary. There's that big old bird that swooped down and took that kid that was in Rolling Prairie. Same thing with the thing that ripped or did a hole in a trailer or something like that and looked into somebody people night in that area too. This is all within pretty reasonable driving distance of the national park. So Indiana Dunes National Park, I think there's some stuff happening. I'm going to be spending a lot of time out there this summer. Going to get some video, get some good stuff for you guys, because it's easily accessible for me. So you guys will probably see more stuff from Indiana Dunes. I'm not sure if I'm doing the Manistee thing this summer, just fiscally and research wise. I would rather have a bigger budget, more equipment, and more resources and friends to make that so much better for you guys. But Indiana Dunes, I don't have to worry about lodging. I don't have to worry about, like, oh, I got to scout 2 areas and then try to make something out of it. This place I can go check out whenever I want. So hopefully we get some cool things out of there. Maybe we'll find the legendary Sand Squatch. Not to be mixed up with the Sam Squatch from Trailer Park Boys. But yeah, sorry. One more thing about the Indiana Dunes. As I was mentioning with national parks earlier, there is a lot of missing people in this area. They find not only, well, I guess if you find a missing person, they're not missing anymore. But they find a lot of dead bodies, and actually back in like the 20s and 30s, they found a lot of dead people that were linked to like the crime syndicate and stuff like that. And as you guys have heard me talk about countless times on this shows and other shows I've been on, there is a lot of crime coming from Chicago up the coast of Michigan, like the Muskegon, Ludington, all that area. You had old Scarface, Al Capone himself, bootlegging and stuff like that all across the bottom part of Lake Michigan. So there's a bunch of reports of just dead bodies out in the middle of the Indiana Dunes. They still find some every now and then. You know, national parks are unfortunately pretty common for that kind of stuff. Human trafficking is a real big thing. So, like me and many other people always say, if you're going to go camping or if you're going to go hiking, you know, of course we want you to worry about the cryptids and stuff like that. But the most dangerous creature out there is man. So, you know, it's good to go in a group of people. I suggest if you're going to go off trail and stuff, 4 to 5 people, if not more. If you're going to be on trail, 2 or 3 people. Just don't ever go out by yourself, really. Unless it's like your backyard trails or something like that. Make sure you always have some people go. Because I want you guys to be safe. I don't want to hear about any of you guys on the news or anything like that. And it's a lot more fun taking people out there with you. And if something does happen, cryptid wise or paranormal wise out there, you got more witnesses. People are more willing to listen to you when more than one person had something happen at the exact same time. That's just how it is. But next, we're going to take you to the great state of Michigan, my old stomping grounds, where I was born and raised, and where I still claim, even though I am a resident of Indiana, I will always be a Michigander at heart. The great state of Michigan, and our national park up there, Isle Royale. Isle Royale is weird because it is so out there. It's basically Canada. Actually, I feel like a lot more Canadians visit it than in Minnesotans, than Yoopers and the rest of Michigan. It is up there. It is above the UP, and it gets gnarly up there in the winter. It's one of the few national parks that's only open certain times a year. It's actually closed off from, I believe, October to end of March, early April, if I'm correct, just because it gets so harsh up there. So Isle Royale got real big because a lot of scientists like to use it as a gauge for the predator prey scale. Like, what's the right amount of animal, like, prey to predator ratio? Where does it balance out? So they've been studying the wolves and the moose, I believe. It's either the moose or elk up there because there's just a lot. And they've been able to study what happens when the wolf population gets too high, the elk population goes down, but then because there's not enough food for the wolves, then the wolf population goes down, the elk population and the moose population goes up, but then disease happens. So it has been very, very, very useful for scientists to study that, which also has helped nationwide all these other national parks and what is going on. So We can kind of thank Isle Royale for that. Keep the wolf populations down in certain areas, keep the deer population, and it kind of helps gauge how many deer tags they're going to give out each year, because if the deer population is really high in that one area, I'm just going to say deer, it's moose most likely, but everybody knows deer better. Everybody can relate to deer. So, if the deer population's high up there, they can make an estimate based on surrounding states that the deer population in the similar environment is probably about the same. Because especially in Michigan, there ain't too many predatory species. I mean, you got your coyotes, you got bears way up higher, bobcats, supposedly, all that good stuff. But, besides science, there's a lot of other stuff up there. There's silver mines. Copper's really, really big up there. But there's also some ghost stories, too. I'm starting to realize that UP, besides, the Sasquatch and the Dogman, which I ain't heard too much Dogman coming up there, but Sasquatch activity, there's a lot. But more than anything, there's ghost stories. You got your haunted lighthouse stories. You got your haunted bars. I can't tell you how many different books I have on just haunted bars and lighthouses in Michigan. But all our islands seem to be haunted too. And Isle Royale National Park ain't any different. So I got two stories for you from there. So the first one is of sorry, I thought I had this. Charlotte and Angelique Mott. So this is like the biggest haunting on Isle Royale that a lot of people talk about. And it's kind of a weird story. I mean, it's normal for the time, I guess, but there's also some like Wendigo psychosis kind of stuff that happens in the story. It's pretty wild, honestly. I remember reading about it in a book at one point, but completely forgetting about it until I was doing research for this. So, here's the legend, all right? Charlie was a voyager and a prospector. He was hired to survey Isle Royale for copper deposits in hope of setting up a copper mine on the island. He was left there in July with his wife, a young Ashabe woman, Angelique, who was 17 at the time. They set out with only a few supplies and the promise of a supply ship that would be returning shortly. This ship would provide them with the provisions they would need to stay for several months on the island. All right. If I mispronounce the native name, I apologize. I'm all right at them, especially when it comes to the Michigan tribes, but I probably said that one wrong. So, the supply ship that was supposed to come never arrived, whether on purpose or an oversight. Charlie and his wife were left with limited supplies. They had half a barrel of flour, 6 pounds of butter, some beans, and they were pretty good on the island for a minute. They had a boat, a canoe. They had fishing nets, so they were able to fish, to get most of their meal and stuff. But then a big old storm came cracking in and destroyed the canoe, and just as all things wear and tear, their net eventually gave out as well, so it became a lot more difficult for them to be able to do fishing, all that kind of good stuff. Because, you know, they didn't have these fancy bait casters and these Gary Yamamoto Senkos, Wacky Nation. But yeah, they were roughing it with their fishing old school cane poles. If they even had poles, they were net fishing most of the time. So Angelique began using her hair to make snares to try to get some rabbits and stuff, but that's not as effective as net fishing. So for months, they waited out for the ship to arrive. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and eventually it became winter. So food is way harder to get in the winter than it is the summer, especially in Michigan, where the weather, especially up in the UP and north of the UP, is brutal. So, illness got both of them, as it did back then in the cold. They had fevers. They were dying at the same time. Angelique claimed that Charlie was sharpening a butter knife and was calling her a sheep and that he was going to eat her and stuff like that. Yeah, that's kind of Wendigo-ish psychosis like. But Charlie, he ended up starving to death. Angelique was reported to be a larger woman, so she was able to survive the winter. And because of her native culture, she was able to last until the relief came in May. That's pretty wild. She ended up having to eat her husband, apparently. So I know, especially northern native tribes, real big on the Wendigo. I don't know how much that plays in the story, just based off what I'm reading. Probably not too much, but it's still pretty wild, especially having to eat your husband and stuff like that. That's no bueno, but when you're trapped on an island, there's not much you can do, I guess. So people still report seeing the ghost of Charlie wandering all over the island, and they also report all the copper miners that died throughout time. They're just walking around the island, their spirits. And I mean, I can see it. There's a lot of history up there. Mining is, especially back then, it was just so dangerous. But we got one more for you, and I gotta find it. So there's some ghost ships and stuff around the area that went down, but it wasn't in the national park, so I'm not gonna include it. But yeah, I promise I have one more. I'm just trying to find it. Oh, I had a tab for it. Pardon me, guys. I promise one day this show will be a lot better quality for you guys. But thank you for sticking around as I learn the show. You guys are the best. So this one is called The Sleeping Giant. The Sleeping Giant is a natural wonder located in Ontario Superior County. So, yes, this doesn't necessarily take place at the national park, but it has origins on Isle Royale, according to this Native American legend. So, I'm just going to read the legend out. This is from Lake Superior Circle Tours. Go check out Lake Superior. I used to live on it. Beautiful, beautiful place. I highly suggest everybody go check it out at least once in their life. Go to picture, go do all the tourist stuff. Upers will tell you not to do it. Go do it. You're not going to regret doing any of it. I mean, Pictured Rock's cool. Tequanimon Falls, skip that one. There's a lot more cool falls. Go to Dead Man's Falls and slide down a cliff like I did. That was fun. Don't go in the middle of winter, though. That was a bad idea. But, all right, let's get into it. Coordinate. Sorry. According to Native American lore, there was once a great spirit within the deep waters of Lake Superior known as Nanabiju, or Nanabeho. Uh, Nanabeho became incredibly happy and pleased with the tribe of indigenous ancestors and their natural traditions, a peaceful way of living. They were located on an island near Thunder Bay, Ontario, called Isle Royale. To reward them with great the Great Spirit called upon the tribe's chief and shared with him the source of beautiful silver, a large silver mine known today as Silver Islet. However, in return, Nanabia sternly warned the chief that he should never share his secret with the white man. or a curse would be placed upon him, and he would then turn to stone forever. The chief thanked Nanabeho and promised that he and his people would keep the information safe, and they would be eternally grateful. Like any great legend, there is always a twist or turn. Some become curious and jealous of the beautiful silver items the tribe was creating. The envious group was called the Sioux Warriors, and they were ready to do anything to gain access to this precious silver. They were not successful in gaining the truth through torturing or even killing any of the tribe members, as the tribe stayed true to their word. However, the warriors were cunning and clever, and sent one of their scouts disguised as one of the tribe members. Eventually, the young scout located the silver islet, the large silver mine, and the answer to the warriors' curiosity. The scout was able to take a piece of the beautiful silver for himself and began the journey back to his people. While on his journey, he decided to stop at a white trading post. He did not have any money or goods to trade for something to eat, so he used a piece of silver. The white man noticed the silver, and through persuasion and liquid-induced interrogation, they were told the story of the silver islet. The men and the scouts ventured out onto the waters in a small canoe towards the mine. A wild storm began, which ended in the men drowning, the mine being flooded, and the great deep water spirit Nanabeo being turned into stone. We can now see the stone formation driving along Highway 17 towards Thunder Bay. That's a pretty interesting story nonetheless. It mentioned Isle Royale in it, so I'm counting it, These Native American stories are all very, very interesting to me, especially the ones that describe like landmarks and stuff, such as this one, or just like petroglyphs or geological anomalies that happen. And let me tell you, the Great Lakes are wild. Y'all heard me talk about the Lake Michigan Triangle plenty of times. Well, guess what? There's the Great Lakes Triangle, and I ain't even got into that. And we'll be getting into that one day. One day soon, probably. And this would fall right into that area. So, yeah, guys, this was the episode 1 of the national parks. And they're going to get a lot better, and they're going to get a lot more interesting. Indiana Dunes and Isle Royale are 2 of the smallest national parks in the country. But they're the closest to home for me, so I really just wanted to do them first, pay homage to them, and give you guys a little shorter episode this week. Next week, you guys are getting hit with a double dose of episodes. Is it next week? Easter week, you guys are getting hit with a double dose of episodes. So, look forward to that. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming in the way. One of the next national parks on my list, I know I said I didn't have an order, but I will be doing the Great Smoky Mountain National Park as one here real soon in the future, because that is one that I have actually been to. We'll probably hit Ohio's National Park in the next episode as well. I might be able to get some Bigfoot researchers that have been in that area too. I've been talking to some buddies that know some people out there, so that'll be fun. I'm excited to do this national park series just as a side kind of thing, give you guys a little break from interviews every once in a while, and mix some interviews in there with you too. So this will be a fun one here in the future. But with that being said, guys, thank you guys for everything, honestly. If you guys have anything that you would like to see more of on the show, if you have any suggestions, anything that I could be doing better to make your guys' experience with this show better, let me know. Because all I want to do is make the show better for you guys. Because I'll tell you what, I'm going to be here every week that I have possible doing this for you. I don't care if there's only just one of you guys listening. I want to put it out. I want to put out good content for you guys. So with that being said, you guys are awesome. And if you or anybody you know wants to be a guest on the show, hit me up. I'd love to talk to you guys. And I cannot stress that enough. Eventually, I'd like to get to the point where I can have multiple episodes coming out a week with you just talking to people about this kind of stuff, and that'll be possible when I get more of you guys wanting to come on the show. So thank you guys once again, and I look forward to next week. And until then, God bless each and every one of you, and just keep trying to figure out where your puzzle piece fits. I think I'm gonna start adding that at the end of every episode too. So God bless and find your puzzle piece. Bye.